I'm having some difficulty on the part where I'm supposed to think of the kindness of my mother. There is some trauma there, and sometimes I am able to think of her kindness. For example, carrying me for 9 months, giving birth, and so forth. But at other times, the thoughts turn to the facts, and great sadness arises. In short, by the time my brother and I were 5 and 6, my parents had visited the emergency room many times. I put my finger in a car lighter and got burned. I was knocked unconscious for 2 days, and my brother drank gasoline, ate poisonous mushrooms, got electrocuted. I don't think he died from it, and was run over by a lawnmower. I've tried to put these into perspective as accidents that kids have, and that these events were simply negative karma ripening. But feelings that my mother was negligent kept popping up. I know these are just thoughts, and that there are strong imprints in my mind stream regarding how I interpreted these events as a young child, and even still as an adult. Are there any techniques for overcoming this? I have much compassion for my mother, and I know she must have been suffering and still suffers today. Yeah. So, yeah, the person got hurt a lot, you know, and feels very much that her mother should, or his mother, I don't know who it is, should have been looking over them more closely and prevented the accidents and so on. I must say my first reaction when I read this was, oh my goodness, that mother poor mother having to take her kids to the ER so often. She must have been totally freaked out, because it made me remember when I'm reading this, you know, my brother, I forget what he did one time, but he wound up in the ER, and I was remembering a time at DFF when, I don't know if any of you were there, when we were talking. We had a little group and we talked about the naughty things we did when we were younger. And one person had said that, you know, she and her brother's sisters decided to make pretend breakfast one day. So they made pieces of bread out of newspaper and put them in the toaster, and the kitchen caught fire. Yeah, and you know, everybody was telling these kind of stories from when they were young and what they did. And I was also remembering even Lama Osel, you know, well, he doesn't like to be called Osel. Even Osel, when he was a baby, he was at, or a toddler, you know, he was at Tushita, and he was, you know, as kids do, they stick things in their mouth, and he had stuck something in his mouth and was choking. And his mother, who had I think 3 or maybe 4 kids before him, you know, the monks and nuns without any kids, we were just standing there going, oh no, this kid's choking, what do we do? And Maria just walked up, picked him up by the feet, hung him upside down, whacked him on the bottom, whatever it was came out, put him down, and that was the end of it. And I thought, my goodness, what parents have to go through to keep their kids safe. You know, because we're always doing things. Somebody else, you know, at that day at DFF, they were saying how they remember how we used to have metal curlers? They stuck them in the receptacle, the electrical receptacle. And, you know, I'm sure all of us would like have horror stories from when we were younger. Yeah?
I'm lucky to have hands.
You're lucky to have hands? Yeah. What did you do? So when you were little, you took a bottle filled with gasoline, a squirt bottle, and you would squirt it on the road, and then light a match and watch it burn the gasoline, and you'd keep squirting it, and then the fire would come up, and right before it hit the gasoline, she would stop squirting it, which is a good idea. Otherwise, I mean, you would have caught on fire. Yeah.
Blowing my hands
Yeah, I mean, not just your hands, but, you know, probably the rest of you too.
I did that a few times.
Yeah. So, you know, when I hear of these things, it's like, you know, it's impossible, I think, for parents to keep kids 100% safe. You know, now, okay, there is negligence, you know, on the part of some parents, where parents really should be, you know, taking better care and watching over their kids. Like these things I was telling you the other day about accidents with guns, where parents, you know, they were walking somewhere and they just put a gun down on the sofa for a few minutes and their toddler came by and shot somebody. You know, those kinds of things, definitely there's negligence. But I think keeping a child 100% safe is very difficult. And I think it's kind of miraculous in one way that we all survived childhood, considering what we did and all the dangers that, you know, that and difficulties we were getting ourselves into, and how much our parents really came to our rescue. And I just remember that time when my brother, you know, went to ER. My parents were like so freaked out. They were so worried about their child, you know. So I think, you know, it's hard to say. It's not for me to judge whether in this person's circumstance it was negligence or not, but just a thing to remember in this process is that it's impossible for parents to completely protect their child from every kind of harm, you know, and especially with children who are inquisitive and infant, you know, toddlers. We don't know what to do and what not to do, and how many of us roll downstairs, you know. So I see in many of these situations our parents as the ones who protected us by taking us to ER, because if they were really negligent, they would have just said, oh, it's nothing, you know, kind of get over it. But, you know, they took us to ER. I remember one time, I've only had to go to ER once, you know, when I had pneumonia, and there was a father in there with his kid who had swallowed a battery. You know? And I mean, it's like, they see so many of these kinds of things. So I think, you know, in this kind of situation, look at it from the perspective of, you know, whether it was negligence or not. The parents got, you know, enabled me to survive childhood and all the difficulties and accidents and injuries that I got, you know, and really appreciate our parents for that, for making sure that we got an education. You know, you're able to write an email because your parents taught you how to talk, and, you know, and made sure we did our homework even though we resisted it. And, you know, I mean, so much kindness comes from our parents. And in here, the person was saying that, you know, her thoughts turned to the facts. So there may have been facts, but you know, there's many kinds of facts. Yeah, there's the facts of us getting hurt, and there's the facts of us doing well. Yeah, and so I think it's important, you know, when looking at things, to see that, you know, okay, childhood was not ideal, but there's so many ways in which people took care of us and benefited us, you know, and those are part of the facts also, yeah. And I mean, I think it must be incredibly difficult to raise a child. Yeah, and it's the thing that you know, you don't have to get a license, you don't have to get any pass any courses. You know, it's maybe the most difficult thing in the world, but you can do it cold turkey. Yeah, so of course it's not going to be ideal. Yeah, but to really appreciate the good things that did happen to us, and, you know, and not just dwell on the things that we didn't like. Yeah, I think I told you one time also of being in at a conference, a self-help conference, and the main speaker was telling about how all he wanted to do was go to a ball game with his father, and his father never took him to the ball game, you know. And then somebody else once was telling me that they have a lot of resentment because they never had birthday parties. And, you know, I mean, we can look at so many things and find things wrong. And then I think of children, I mean, in India, where I lived a long time, and, you know, forget birthday parties, they don't even know when their birthdays were, because they were born at home and there was no birth certificate, and it was lucky that they even survived birth. Yeah? And so I think, you know, if we dwell on the certain things, we can make our mind very tight and very unhappy. If we dwell on other things, then we feel incredibly fortunate and really feel the kindness of people who have taken care of us when we were little. Yeah? And I even think of my sister. You know, she was adopted. Her mother gave her up, her birth mother gave her up at the time of birth because she couldn't take care of her. And, you know, and I think that was a kindness of the birth mother to do, because she recognized her own abilities and inabilities. And I got a little sister as a result of it, which I always wanted. Yeah. So, you know, you can look at things from so many different perspectives, and I think really part of thought training is training our mind to look at things from a positive perspective, you know, and then we really see kindness and help everywhere, you know. Because if we just train our mind to see things from what was lacking, then we grow up, you know, we become very bitter people. Yeah, and who wants to grow old being bitter? I don't, yeah.